The views and opinions expressed during Love and Life with Lana and Dave are those only of the speakers and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or the position of our podcast hosts or affiliates. Any content provided is not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, anyone, or anything. All right, let's do it.
You're listening to Love and Life with Lana and Dave, the podcast where logic is power and you take control. Thank you for tuning in and making the choice to listen in and get ideas for your own love and life. Now, here are your hosts, Lana Williams and David Vaccaro. I'm David.
I'm Lana.
And I was supposed to be Ralph. And
you were supposed to be Ralph, and you did this last week.
You know, and it's funny.
You keep telling me.
I keep telling you, and I don't do it. And, you know, a lot of times when people ask me what my name is, I say Frank. And it's kind of funny because I couldn't use the word Frank today because we happen to have a guest named Frank today.
Again, my brother Frank today.
It's your brother Frank. How about that,
Frank.
Everybody?
I know, huh?
You want to tell us a little bit about Frank, Lana? And then we'll just get right into it.
I can tell a story from my side about like how when I was a kid, you know, this is like back in the 60s, and I may or may not have told you this, Dave, but I had some grandparents that were fairly strict, and my mom got pregnant at a very young age. And do you remember back in the day where like they would take the woman and give her like a suitcase and send her like off on a trip?
That's right.
And then she would come back and it would be like, oh, how was your trip? But really it was like
she went to give birth.
Adoption agencies type thing.
Yeah.
So that happened when my mom was young. And so that would be Frankie. And then he was adopted and we knew all about him forever, but never like where he was or anything that was going on. And my mom she was so worried about ever like finding him that she was going to get probably yelled at for like, but technically my grandparents kind of made her do it.
Right. Of course. That was the thing back then. And it turns out
she was young.
It turns out that he's a fabulous guy. You know, how everybody that's been adopted does really well in life. I got to say, I meet a lot of people that are.
Yeah, I would say that probably Frankie got the better end of the deal when you look back on it, because you know my sister and I didn't necessarily have like he was adopted by a family that raised him, and he had a mom and dad, and kind of didn't you have like kind of a suburban? Actually, let Frank say hi because I'm just talking about him.
Hi, Frank.
Hey, how are you? I wouldn't call it, suburban. Yeah, I guess, because we always, we weren't living in the mountains or the desert. I mean, I grew up in a upper middle class area in Southern California.
Yep.
Most of my life. We did live in St. Louis for a while, and we did live in Boston for a while. When my dad was going to seminary, he was a Presbyterian minister for most of my life, but he always worked with kids.
Yep.
He worked for Optimist International. That was an organization that would put kids in group homes after they got out of juvenile hall. Mm-hmm. And my parents were house parents for probably the first 10 years of me and my sister's lives.
That makes sense,
we grew
actually.
we grew up in group homes with emotionally disturbed children, which back then there was no Ritalin, there was no, ADD, ADHD. It hadn't been diagnosed to anybody yet. So you dealt with the kid one-on-one. My mom was a special ed teacher for 47 years. So she dealt with the problem, not the pills.
That's great.
Where do we get more pills?
Love
it wasn't
that.
Babysitter in the bottle. My mom crossed picket lines to teach when other teachers went on strike for money because my mom didn't feel like children's education should suffer because people weren't getting paid enough money.
Yep.
So my mom got in fights and got called names and got spit at and got her lunch, thrown away in the trash. So my parents, even though we were never rich, ever rich, we were poverty. But we were
But you had a foundation.
Family.
I think you had a good foundation.
Good foundation and good Christian parents that took us to church on Sundays, which I never thought hurt anybody. We gained a lot of our, but I was the rebel. I knew those weren't my parents from a very young age on.
Right.
They were older. My dad was, I believe, he was something like 35 or I don't know. He's going to be 94 this year.
Yeah.
He lives right down the street from us. We have him in a system.
And you would have been adopted in 65, correct?
65.
Yep.
Yeah. 6 months, I believe. 6 months
I'm going to
old.
let you continue talking about that, but I just want to say that to our listeners, stay tuned for this. We're not talking about family today. Frank is actually. Do you remember the guy, or you remember hearing about how a bunch of people were going to storm Area 51? That's Frank. Put that together. So also, if you've heard about what's the name of the company, the AI,
My Legacy Voice.
My Legacy Voice. And if you go to mylegacyvoice.com, if you don't know what it is, it's like a way to store your voice and then have it say whatever you choose. Even after you're dead, you can actually have, you can send, you could type out something, and whatever is typed, is that how it works? You type it? And then
text to speech.
And so it's text to speech using your actual voice. And you cannot tell the difference. And I've heard it already with Ice-T, for example. And you can't tell the difference between his voice and the actual Legacy voice. Is insane. So stay tuned. But go ahead, back to your story, Frank. I just wanted them to know what some of the things we're going to be talking about today.
I mean, we're doing a little bit of family just because,
you guys are family.
Related,
that's right.
So that's, But that's not what the subject.
So let me play the devil's advocate. Who had the better mother here?
Well, I mean, do you want to be?
From what I hear, I did. I did from what I hear.
Yeah.
I heard from what my sisters have told me that they had a rough childhood.
We did. We just got together, and actually, Kayla just came up here for 4 days or something.
Yeah.
I haven't seen her in a while, so we got together, and most of it was just driving her, making sure she gets caught up with her friends and whatever. And we just sat and talked about our childhood and, whatever. As much as I'd like to make my mother a villain, it's my mother was who she was. I mean, some of the issues that you were talking about, where I don't know. I do believe that my mother kind of never grew up as an adult.
Yeah.
And in some ways, she just had a very juvenile way of dealing with us, and it got in the way of some of our upbringing, and it's unfortunate. But we're trying to laugh about it now, and
that's right. That's all we can do.
Hey, listen, there's no playbook. There's no playbook for kids like me either. So I wasn't the first one ready for church every Sunday morning either. Right. I was off doing my own thing. My parents were hyper strict. There was no. We could listen to the music, but at the time it was we could listen to the radio. But at the time we could only listen to the country because there was no bad lyrics in country. So of course, what do I want to listen to? Well, I want to listen to the rock.
Yep.
The first time I heard Judas Priest, the first time I listened to Judas Priest, I knew I was hooked. It was over.
Yep.
I'm in. Yeah.
So it's so funny because there's a lot of things about you that I agree with, and I probably have, because I'm related to you, we have the same kind of
it's in your DNA,
personality.
I think. Yeah, I think so. I see a lot of similarities between you two.
Do you really?
Yeah, absolutely.
This is going to be fun. This is for
just talking to Frank.
Because somebody can just,
Frank, I've known your sister now for several years, and I would say just by talking to you, you guys are a lot alike. I feel like I'm talking to a male version of her. Well, I do kind of.
You are, I guess.
I grew up. I don't believe in the astrology sign, but I grew up in the. I'll tell you how to do it better, and then they'll say, "Okay, why don't you do it?" I'm like, "Nah, you guys do it."
That's right.
I'm not the kind of guy that. I always want, anything I've ever done, any event I've ever done, I've tried to take it to the top.
Mm-hmm.
And not,
you're
not
do it.
What everybody else is going to do, so when I do things, I and again, you talk about Storm Area 51 and the things we've done with Ice-T and a lot of other celebrities and sports stars and musicians. And they're all a pain in the ass. I mean, the most stressful times in my life have been because I've been dealing with them.
Right. Like I tell people that they're human beings.
It's not all fun and games.
No, of course not, because they're human beings that are sick of people because, it's just like they're thrown into this world of stardom, and it's just like, okay, so who can I trust and who can I trust? I mean, I have a lot of friends in industries as well, besides music, sports figures, and, they've got so much money that it's like, I told him, I was telling a friend of mine the other day, I was talking to him, and he's a retired NHL player. And, so he's got money, or as he likes to put it, why are you sleeping so late? I'd say to him, and he'd be like, well, I'm rich and I don't work. That's why, I love that. So, but a lot of times, like I said something, I'm like, oh, and you can get it for free. And he goes, well, how much is it? And I go, what? I just said it's free. He's like, yeah. He goes, and he's like, oh, yeah, that's just my mentality kicking in, because I always feel like nothing's free. So somebody would be like, oh, you want this for free? He'd be like, how much? It's just the mentality changes. So
it's funny that he would say that, because most celebrities are the last ones that want to pay for anything.
Correct. Because they're so used to getting it for free. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. People will bend over backwards to give them artwork that they've created, or clothing that they've created, or, a car that's the newest car to see you driving it. They don't pay for anything.
No.
And they don't think that they should. But now, so the other big thing is, well, I'm going to give you a bunch of publicity. Great.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll tell the mortgage company that next month when I can't pay. Hey, I've got publicity. How much will you take at once?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly right.
How much publicity can I use to pay my mortgage this month?
Yeah. So I'm kind of known. I'm known in the industry as, even the rock and roll industry, is I was the one that was known as being the asshole.
Because you wanted your paycheck.
I've unplugged amplifiers because somebody said they're not going to play unless they get a drum rider that's 8x8 instead of 7x7. So I'll go start unplugging their guitars too. They don't like that.
No.
Wait a second. Whoa. What are you doing? I'm like, well, you said you weren't playing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to play your stuff.
Yeah.
And they, and I've ran across everybody from Guns N' Roses management, who that guy.
Yep.
He loves me because I didn't take shit from him, and I didn't take everything on his rider and go buy it for him.
Right.
Yeah. It's just a matter of, you have to stand up for yourself, and you have to be a human being just like them. You have to be, if they have to be a human being, you got to be one too.
Sure. Absolutely.
So,
but you know what I take from that? If somebody tells you they're going to do something, as far as I'm concerned,
they're doing it.
Yeah.
Like I don't play people telling me something and not doing it.
Yeah. Don't beat around the bush.
I'm taking you at your word.
Right. I'd rather you tell me no than say yes and then not be able to pull it off.
Right. So don't tell me you're not going to do something because you think it's going to coerce me into changing my game.
Exactly.
I'm going to take you for exactly what you tell me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then we're doing it this way.
I'm gonna jump right in here because I'm dying to talk about this. I'm dying to talk about this technology, because we talked a little bit in pre-show about how this technology came about to with this voice stuff. It's My Legacy Voice is what it's called.
My Legacy Voice.
My Legacy Voice. Okay. So mylegacyvoice.com. So you started out with this as an idea to do for podcasts, so you could change the question or something.
Not us. That's what the technology was originally created for, was podcasters.
Okay.
Because you always go back and you say, damn it, I should have said this, or God, I wish they would have said that, or added to that question and then had them answer it the way that they did.
Sure.
So that's the one side of this technology that we don't touch, because that's kind of the company we use AI as a third party. So we have they basically we give them a rough draft of a voice. In other words, we hand them we give them a recorded voice done by script. They give it back to us as the frame of a car,
right,
with no wheels on it and no accessories and no doors.
Sure.
So what we do is we go in with a sound tech, like you and I have been working with for the last 40 years. And a sound tech has a different kind of ear than anybody else. And that's why when I say our technology and our clones come back at 98.9% accurate.
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
That's beyond the human element. You ever heard of the uncanny valley?
No. Oh, I'll tell you what uncanny valley is.
Go ahead and tell them what that is.
I have uncanny valley, so I can tell you what that is. That's when something is like, when I saw Sophia, and you know who Sophia is.
Yeah.
Anybody? You do, right? Probably that's what it's so human that it freaks you out. That's what I think. I mean, that's the definition of it.
Well, your body your mind won't accept it.
Right. Like you just see something and you're like,
that might be real, but it's not real. So I'm not going to.
But it's like
hearing it's not real. It is creepy. I've done some stuff with AI to regenerate my face, and I look at it and I go, that's me. Like, but it's not me. It is.
Yeah.
So that's okay. So that's Uncanny Valley.
And I would say the other thing that gives me Uncanny Valley is anything that's Boston Dynamics. That those guys, everything they do, the robot dog and the spider and all that stuff. I'm just like,
So at about 81% is where the Uncanny Valley starts in audio voice recording and artificial voice recording.
Okay.
So for us to be at where we are, did you see the movie Maverick?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like as in Tom Cruise, as in
Tom Cruise, Top Gun.
Okay. No, I didn't see it yet.
The new one. Yeah.
Okay, so you saw it, Lena.
I did.
Val Kilmer's voice in that was a synthetic voice.
It had to be.
He lost his voice he has throat cancer and he has to cover the hole in his throat.
Yes, he does. Yeah. Yep.
So when we saw what they had done, because we reached out to Val over a year and a half ago to try to help him before we even knew Maverick was coming out, to try to help him. And they said they were working with some company in the UK and they're getting him ready for a movie. Well, what they did with Val Kilmer's voice took them about 40 tries. They finally pieced it together. It cost about $1.5 million. And we thought it sounded like shit, to the point where we would have never sent it out.
Right. In comparison, right?
Especially to a celebrity,
right.
So we could have done that same thing to him. We could have had it back to him in 48 hours with the small amount of dialogue he had. It would have been 98.9, and not even he would have been able to tell the difference between him and what we said.
And you could have done that. Could you have done that with like just some of his old dialogue?
We would need him to read you have to be alive for us to clone you right now. We don't own an artificial intelligence laboratory.
Right.
So we use a third party that basically clones for us, but then we create the clone and make it what it is.
So in reality, Frank, coming from the tech world, two things. Coming from the music world, I'm very picky when I listen to a vocalist sing. I'm more likely to be able to tell you what effects are being used on that voice, what the difference is between the real person's voice and the effects that are being using. Like I can hear the slightest use of any auto-tune, absolutely, which I don't mind. There's a place for it. No, I get it.
People bitch about, because they were just bitching. I had Eric Singer in the studio a couple weeks ago from Kiss.
Yeah.
And we were talking about auto-tune and Paul Stanley, that he uses some auto-tune, and people are pissed off. I'm like, he's 70, for God's sake. We're still able to go to a Kiss concert, you selfish, nitpicky little bitch.
Yeah, that's right.
He can use all the auto-tune he wants.
That's right. He's earned it. He's earned it. He's proven himself.
Same with Elton John. Same with I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, no, I don't either. Everybody's using it now a little bit. So so there's that. But when I listen to your outtake of the demo that you guys have available on your website, I listened to it many times over. And I actually sent it to a friend of mine and who actually knows him in person and said, "Now that's him." I go, "It's not him." They go, "I think it's a scam."
Wait, doesn't he say he says it in the thing?
He does that. Oh no, it's not him. It's definitely not.
No, but I mean, but
I'm telling you,
for him to say to you it's him, wouldn't he have heard Ice-T say it? That's not me.
No. He's saying no. That's not why he's saying it's not. He couldn't believe that it was like artificial intelligence.
That's what Ice-T's Ice-T's got the same manager for 37 years.
Right.
We played it for him. He said, "You're a motherfucking liar." He goes, "That's you."
Yeah. That's insane. That's how crazy it is. Now we're going to talk a little bit about my security side of the world. Okay.
Yep.
Because we talked in pre-show, we talked a little bit about, you have a very good idea to do something that's very accurate for a good cause, right?
Yeah.
That's your plan. However, in this industry, like, think of this. Okay, so we're doing a podcast right now, and I say, whatever it is I say. It's very simple for somebody to go in and change everything that I say. And that's where it becomes a little scary, right? Because, here's a recording of me saying something that would stand up. And I'm going to tell you right now, that shit will stand up in court because, that's definitely him. You could put my mother on a stand and with this artificial intelligence, and she would. I mean, my mother's passed away, but if she was alive, she would. Or my father, for example, he'd be like, "Yeah, that's my son. Of course, I know my son's voice." Or any of my friends, they would verify that that's me. And the problem that I have with this is, or maybe you don't, because you don't come from a technical world, but anything that's made for good, and I made a software. I made a software that was used. It was cyber forensics, and it's a forensics tool that allows me to tell who's talking to who, and build graphically thing, and say, Lana is connected to this person. So let's say we're looking for a bad guy. This bad guy's talking who? Let's see who his team is. Or this is the next biggest. He talks to this guy the most, and this is all through technology, right? So you'd think that would be used for good. And then eventually it gets to the point where we get these 3-letter places that start using it to listen to everything that we're doing, right?
Right.
That was not its intention.
There's nothing that's out there that's not going to get used for nefarious reasons at some point.
Correct. So, and that's what's scary about this. All artificial intelligence stuff, like I'm all artificial intelligence. Everything I do has artificial intelligence in it. But the problem is with stuff like this, and Frank, I think it's a great idea what you're using it for. You want to tell people what your plan is to use it for first?
Well, when we originally started with it was to use posthumously. So you would keep your voice like you would keep your pictures or your memoirs or whatever, because everybody says the same thing. I wish I could hear their voice one more time.
I wish I could talk to them. Yeah.
Wish I could. We're not there yet with having a conversation with somebody outside of
the technology exists, though. The technology exists,
but you can't tell me. My grandmother cannot tell me where she hid the family diamonds yet.
Correct. That's right.
She can't tell me that I love you and I'm feeling good. You look nice. You look great.
Yep.
It's good to hear. She can tell me the generic.
Sure, of course.
So could we carry on a generic conversation?
Absolutely.
Yes, and I think. At first, I thought that was a little morbid, but in learning a little bit and doing some case studies, we're finding out that it's not only not morbid, but it's healing for some people.
Sure.
Because some people during COVID,
a lot of people are feelers, so this is right up their alley.
Yeah. See, I hate it.
I love
but
it.
I get it. I completely get it.
I get it too.
Yeah. People went into the hospital with COVID, hoping to come out with a medication and a bag full of toothpaste, and they never left the hospital, and their family never got to say goodbye.
Right.
That's where this was bred from, was the ability to, and when I talk about people, the first thing I tell them right now, they say, well, what do you use a clone for? To break up with your girlfriend? I'm like, no, I would use it to do my own eulogy after I passed away. Because I got somebody else doing it.
Yeah.
If you're like us, all of us, we all have to bury ourselves, right? I mean, nobody else is going to do it like we do it, right?
My wife knows my friends. She knows my jokes. She knows my personality. So why can't she write something and have me speak it to my friends after?
Or you could write it, and then when the time comes, it's there.
That's true. You could just do it beforehand.
So
that's the whole point of saving the voice. We'll save somebody's voice for about. It costs us very little to save somebody's voice forever.
Store it, right?
Store it.
The expensive part is
record it, and store it. To clone it, that's where the more expensive comes in. But we've got that pretty streamlined. I talked to Morgan Freeman's people. He was one of the first people that we wanted to.
Of course.
Clone.
Oh God,
I'm not surprised.
You can't miss his
voice.
You
said it. You said it. Oh God. Well, we wanted. We thought. Well, what if we had Morgan Freeman's voice and we approached one of the big publishers for the Bible, and we did an audio books of Morgan Freeman reading the Bible. Now, who wouldn't buy that? First of all,
right? And
they said, "Well, how can you charge? How much would you charge for a Bible? It'd be thousands." I'm like, "We're not going to sell it by the Bible. We're going to sell it by the book." So Genesis is, if you on Exodus, it's another 1995.
That's right.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Morgan Freeman's voice had been stolen by somebody that they not cloned, but what they did was they picked out words. And this is we call this the trailer park version of what we do.
Yep.
They go pick out sentences and words and string them together to form a sentences. And that's how they're doing the deep fake.
Yeah.
Right.
I was just going to bring that up. That's so funny.
Those are not cloned. Those are not cloned voices.
No, that's not the same thing. However, even though the technology right now, Frank, maybe doesn't exist, and we talked about this in show notes as well, you need the person to be alive to do it. Now,
you have to be able to read a disclaimer telling me that you're giving me permission to clone your voice.
Okay. Well,
and your wife's the only one that has access to it.
Right. And that's all fine and dandy, but the technology in itself could be totally used in a different way, like we discussed. And hopefully it's never is, but it will be. But, you know, it's you can't put that blame on anybody. We can't stifle our technology growth because of this stuff, right? But here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
There is enough right now. There is enough of my voice because of these podcasts.
In this podcast, yeah.
That you could take this and clone my voice. Maybe not yet, but in reality, because remember something, I'm recording separate from Lana and separate from you. So my voice is all by itself. There's no other interference going on. So take that file, and at one point, you'll be able to ingest these files into then the more you have, the more accurate it will be,
right? In a hopper, yeah.
Think of this, right? So right now you have artificial intelligence with pitches where you upload 30 pictures of yourself, and then artificial intelligence will make images of you that are not you. And
then you can also at some point, I see it coming where it will start making video image of you.
Oh, 100%.
It's got enough of your features and everything to have you talking.
Of course.
Moving picture, you know.
That's right. So, you know, and again, Frank, please don't take this the wrong way. I'm always playing the devil's advocate when it comes to technology.
I'm sure that I've heard this from somebody before.
Oh, I'm sure. And, you know, our technology is going to a very scary place. And it's scary, but it's only scary because there's shady bastards around, right? Mm-hmm. And, I mean, think about it. I mean, don't think for a second that, you know, I mean, I could end up in prison because of something that I never said, a deep fake.
Right.
And, you know, it could change my life. And that's what's scary about this. And great, it's being used for good right now, but eventually it'll be used for bad. Right. So, you know, the technology, once the technology exists, and it's very good, and you
can't put it back in the box.
You can't put it back in the box. And nor should you have to. I mean,
how about if we put our collective projective heads together and come up with things that could happen and try to figure out how to circumvent them, and we come up with really bad dark scenarios, and then try to say, okay, what would be? And
they probably done that internally, right? I'm sure, Frank.
Well, we actually were contacted by a financial services company that uses their voice tax, people's voices to access their accounts.
Yep.
And at one point, somebody took $3 million out of an account with an artificial voice.
Yep. And
so instead of saying, well, you got to stop that from happening, that's not good, we said, well, what if we could embed a tone into, vocal tone into that would immediately be recognized as a synthetic voice, not a human voice.
Yep.
So you couldn't tell, and I couldn't tell, but the computer
would tell.
That's not a person. That's a fake voice.
And that's what happens with images right now. We're able
and they
to
said,
tell.
why aren't you guys pursuing that? It's worth $1 billion. Oh,
all day. Like, well, yeah, 100%.
So many other little things,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at one point we've come to the conclusion that we're drowning in opportunity.
Oh, of course. Absolutely.
And that's why there's the low hanging fruit, which is the obvious. Clone your voice for a couple of bucks, and for a monthly subscription of $1.99, you can save your voice forever. You might not need it, but you might. You also don't need all those subscriptions to all those platforms that you're streaming on that you're not listening to or watching every month.
That's right.
Of
course.
So that's the low hanging fruit.
I have a master class that you just hit a nerve.
So, but anyway, and everybody's doing. And you know what we do? We look at our phone and go, it's $1.99. I'm going to spend 5 minutes trying to figure out how to get it off my checking account.
Yep, exactly.
Nope. I'm going to close it back up and pray that I don't find another one today that I want to use too.
It's insane. I actually downloaded that app. I forget what it's called. The one that shows you all the things you.
That you're paying for.
Oh, it's true.
Yeah. Holy
something
crap.
now, right?
There's a bunch of them now. Yeah. So I did it, and it came back, and it told me the amount of money I was spending on, and I'm like, what the hell? Are you kidding me? So I went through and I'm like, okay, cancel that. I don't even know I had that one. And then it came back later and said Rocket. That's the one I got. Yeah. So I went I told it to cancel something, and it came back later and said, we couldn't cancel it. And they're like, you have to do something else. And I'm like, forget it. forget it. It's just
all right, then just let it keep
forget
going.
I just gave somebody else my information to solicit me on something else.
That's right.
Hey,
Yeah,
we can get rid of it for you for $1.99 a month.
Yeah, exactly. And they wanted me to pay, so they could.
It goes
could
all the
take
way
care of
back.
it.
You remember in 2000, all our computers were going to crash.
Oh yeah, of course I do.
These companies came out
I
with
made a
this
lot of
disc.
money in 1999.
Well, they came out with the disc that they said, well, for $50, $49.95, we'll send you this disc, and this disc will tell you if your computer's going to crash on, 2000. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what the hell is that thing going to say if I want to make more money? Of course, it's going to say my computer's going to crash, and then they're going to fix it for me for $299.
That's right.
Right.
Yep.
So yeah. So it was. There's always a way to make a buck, and we never wanted to use this. We have to until we own our own lab. Right now, I can do exactly what you said I can do. I can take your voice.
Yep.
And send it in and get it cloned.
Yes.
But not with your permission, though. With your permission, it's a disclaimer. Without your permission, I can. Here's the scary part: is
you could do it. If it was us that was sending back the frame, we're not sending back the frame. Right.
We're doing all the accessories and everything.
Right.
If we were doing the frame, then Marilyn Monroe and Michael Jackson and John Wayne and Humphrey Bogart and all those people, you would hear their voices on commercials today. Correct.
And that's what I'm saying. Because watch this, Frank. If I come to you and I go, hey, Frank, I like your technology. I want to buy your company. I'll give you $2 billion for it.
Mm-hmm.
Sold. Guaranteed right now. Sold. Yes. And then I take that and I don't ask for a disclaimer because I'm not using it like that. I'm going to all the politicians going, oh, you need some sound bites of that idiot that you're going against saying stuff that doesn't even exist. You want to hear about Trump touching vaginas? I can make that. I can make that happen. This is where we're going to, don't think we won't go there because we will. And that's where the problem is going to be. Now it used to be believe none of what you hear and half of what you see. Now it's getting to the point, believe none of what you hear and none of what you see. And, unless the person sitting in front of you, sitting in front of you and you're, then it's bullshit.
I mean, pretty soon we'll have holograms. You won't even be able to sit in front of anybody anymore.
Well, we get approached. We get
them in the head. Going, is it you?
We've been approached by the Dio, Wendy Dio, about Ronnie James Dio's hologram, Tupac's hologram. We've been approached by multiple people, and we tell them the same thing. It's like, if we could do what you want us to do, so could everybody else, and they're going to exploit it. So no, the answer is unfortunately no. Paramount came to us, or not Paramount, Warner Brothers came to us and asked us if I could do the voice of Pennywise. And I'm like, absolutely. I go, if you can get Bill to read off, to read the disclaimer, I can have you back a working clone in 24 hours.
Yep.
They said, well, can't you just go grab stuff off the internet and off the movie and do it? And I'm like, yes, I could. But I said, but that's the whole point that I would be trying to.
You're trying to protect it. You're trying to protect.
I'm trying to protect you. You're asking me to break the same rules I would break, not break if it wasn't Warner. Right. Now, Warner Brothers guys was a dream for us because we can also do character voices. So Bugs Bunny and all those characters that when Mel Blanc died, none of them ever sounded like him again, even when his kid died.
Of course not. Nope.
I can't watch them. I can still watch the old ones. I can't watch the newer ones.
I know. You hear the voice
They
difference.
don't sound right.
Yeah, they're not right.
What if I could bring all those cartoons back?
Right.
What's the value on all those voices for all those dead character voices from all those dead character readers? What's the value of that to you guys? And
that's why I'm saying if somebody comes and says, here's $2 billion, now we don't need that. I mean, I get it. And I appreciate it, Frank, because you're trying to do the right thing.
What if you hand it over for $2 billion and you make them sign contracts and then you say, well, listen, they sign, and they can do whatever they want.
Right.
But you can, listen, I was responsible about this when I sold it.
Right.
And here's the contracts and here's the information. And so now I'm not saying they wouldn't do it.
The AI that Facebook uses, for example, some of the AI, they purchased that. They didn't build it all on their own.
Yeah. Right.
They took a lot of the safeguards out of it. That's why, Facebook's very and they changed it to whatever they choose it. whatever they choose. And I think that's a prime example of being very irresponsible with artificial intelligence, right? The responsibility, and Frank, I appreciate the fact that you guys are trying to maintain some sort of structure, but eventually money's going to push you out of it, and it's also going to push out your safeguards, right? Because it's worth the money. Trust me. I mean, this is a brilliant context you have, because like I said, I cannot decipher the difference, and I would love to hear my voice. I would love to actually do. Now, do you guys do the text to voice, or do you utilize an API yet, or anything like that?
Yeah, well, like I said, once they'll give us back your voice, a rough version of your voice.
Yeah,
and then I have sound techs go in and they'll pull out your inflections, your anger, all your happiness. They'll switch your voice to all, because without all those things, it's just a synthetic voice.
Of course,
it doesn't sound real. That's where the uncanny valley comes in.
Right. No
API.
We figured out a long time ago, if I can't fool myself, I could never try to pitch it to you.
Right. No,
I can't.
Agreed 100%. But my question is, are you eventually going to be able to say, like, I type in a script, and when I type in that script, I hear it say that? Because I know you're doing text to voice now, but once we do that part of it, once we have your voice cloned, we do that part of it. That way we can go into, we know you're talking about a fire that you were just, station fire. So there's going to be some inflections in your voice. Sure.
So we need to put those in there, or else it's just going to sound monotone.
Right. I understand completely.
And that's where, and we're not, Stephen Hawking didn't want a different computer, else he would have got a better one. There's, the Toby computer that he used is more sophisticated now. Sounds more like him, but it's still very monotone.
Yep.
It doesn't inflect any kind of emotion.
Right. Correct.
And emotion is what makes a live person alive and not dead.
That's right.
And not fake. So we're selling live versions of your clone. And, this is the hard thing to talk about is, okay, is it me? Is it a recording? Okay, when they cloned that sheep back in the day.
Right.
And this is how I try to explain it to people. That was not an artificial version of that sheep. That was the sheep.
That was that sheep, yeah.
Now there's two of them.
That's right.
They're exactly the same. You cannot tell the difference. You can't draw blood from it and get a different blood count from it. It's the same sheep. So we didn't record your voice. Yep. We made another version of it that's exactly like the one you have.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the easiest way. But to people, they don't know about cloning right now. And that's been the educational process for us, is where we ran into the most problem. Maybe me and you should talk about this offline.
Oh, yeah. But, I think you guys will be talking for a while after this.
Oh,
we're fighting people's, it's not like the Kardashians and a new purse. This is a new brand of purse, and the Kardashians, people are going to buy it because they told them to.
Right.
They would buy this if the Kardashians told them to, too, which is what we're trying to do with Ice-T.
Yeah.
But Ice-T is such a savvy business person and such a stand-up in your living room, been from smash and grabs in Compton to the White House and Cheerios commercials.
Yeah.
So people listen to him, but they're not looking to Ice-T to tell them what the new tennis shoe to buy.
Correct.
That's what they're looking to the Kardashians for. Right. So having given that now, and nothing against Ice-T, and it's great that we have him, but we haven't made a dime more money because we've had Ice-T.
I understand that. Yeah. So the tech industry is really what needs to know about it, right? More than anything. So and maybe I can help you with that. I've been involved with the tech industry since 1976.
Which is why we were trying to get Val Kilmer. Okay, we don't have to prove it to you anymore. Look what we did with Val's voice.
That's right.
We went after Bruce Willis. He's got aphasia now.
Yeah.
And now he's got dementia on top of that. We were trying to get Bruce Willis a year and a half ago and save his voice, because Bruce Willis sold off most of his properties because he knew he was never going to be able to work in Hollywood again.
Right.
Wrong. You can do voiceovers, and you can do documentaries and do your life story forever.
Yes.
As long as you have your voice, even if you don't know how to speak anymore.
True story.
That's what we're here for.
Right. So let me ask you, Frank. So let's say I come to you and I say, hey, I want to get, I want to take my voice and I want to store it. And so you guys give me a script to read, I'm assuming?
Disclaimer.
A disclaimer, of course. And then
with about a 4 or 5 minute script.
Okay.
You can do it online. You can do it with your iPhone.
Really?
Oh, you didn't know that, huh? Okay,
No.
So We've made this so streamlined.
So
that
wait,
your mom could have done this. Go on the website right now.
I have.
Pull it up and go on there and say "Store My Voice." Go on there. Yeah, I think I'll give you a code. You can do it for free.
So, well, wait. I don't want to store my voice yet until I ask a couple questions, because I'll be hearing myself in a meeting saying I'm buying this for $2 billion, and then I'm on the hook. But all seriousness. So, okay. So I go in and I definitely would love to, I do want to do that because I want to hear it. And I will definitely do that. And, I will share that as well. And I will explain to people what it is in the tech industry, because a lot of people in the tech industry, well, there's multiple things. They have the ability to spread the word like no other, because technology, when the technology is really good, and we say it's really good, it matters more than if my neighbor says, hey, this is really cool,
Right.
Because in technology, now my question is, you use a third party. Let's say I say I want to have and they send it back to you as just the frame of the car, and then you have to build everything onto the frame. Get that? Right. What do they do with that frame of the car? Do they store it, or do they?
We store it.
So they're not maintaining any part of my voice after.
We 100% we're a SOC 2 bordering on SOC 3 compliant.
Okay. Yep.
Security. So better security than you have with your credit cards is securing your voice, because we cannot allow somebody's voice to go out there. When I was to finish that story with Morgan Freeman, his manager called me right back, and I'm like, okay, they're interested. Great. He said, were you the guys that did the commercial for Cadillac, some Cadillac dealership in New York? I'm like, no. Yeah. He goes, you're not those guys. I'm like, no, we have never cloned his voice. So how could we? He goes, well, somebody did. He goes, and they're getting sued for it.
Yeah. If they can find them. Yeah. It was probably done in a different country or something. So
yeah. So I said, okay. So that was the end. I said, so you guys aren't really interested in this at all? He goes, no. He goes, you're not going to put my client out of work.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, first of all, that was kind of a compliment to me that he thinks I can put Morgan Freeman out of work.
Well,
second, that clone, once it's done, we can't do anything with that clone until you approve it. So you say, I've got this script. I'm going to send you this script.
Yeah.
Clone it for me. When I get it back, I'll review it. If it sounds good enough, will you send it out? We can't. So there's almost like a three line process to even get that. Now, for somebody to come in and steal your voice, let's say our clones go up into the cloud, and they drop back down into a non-internet connected server.
Okay.
So somebody can't go into the internet and steal your voice.
Well,
they'd have to come into our house and steal the servers.
Right.
Or
well,
they
could, and don't think that they wouldn't, depending on whose voice it was. If you had the president of the United States voice on there, somebody would break into your house. You'd all be dead, and the house would get blown up.
But they'd have to match his. But they'd have to match his voice up with a number, and with the actual clone, which is next to impossible.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, I get
you're just a number. You're strictly a number to the computer. They'd have to know that number was you first.
Yep. Nope.
So you don't just come out. Well, here's a list of all the names we have in our database.
Stop telling us your secrets, Frank. Stop telling us your secrets, Frank.
No, we have to explain this to everybody, because if they don't feel secure, they're not.
The more you explain, the less secure it becomes.
We hope you enjoyed part 1 of our podcast interviewing my brother Frankie. This is Frankie DiMaggio. He's in the middle of telling us some really great stuff. This is the end of part 1, and part 2 is next week. Stay tuned. We'll see you soon. Hey, you just listened to Love and Life with Lana and Dave. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share the podcast, leave us a comment or review, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any new content. We'll see you soon.